Sure what's happening, especially when we get to like the public execution.
Do it straight. I'm gonna dance. I volunteer my head.
Perfect. We're gonna need an iron cage.
So if you want to hear the Bill Clinton story about the speech though.
Yeah.
What?
So Bill Clinton was giving the State of the Union address and he was known as being fairly long-winded until the current one is now the longest speech, but he was getting about an hour and 15-minute State of the Union address and both teleprompters went off. Actually, no, they didn't go off. They gave their a wrong speech. A totally different speech for something he had no idea. So he started talking and he had such a good memory that he memorized the whole speech. He gave it from memory and still did the looking at everybody. At least 6 different times he went off on a tangent and then came back to the exact spot in the speech that he left without having the teleprompter. He had just, that's a gift. It doesn't mean you're smart or correct about things, but boy, having that kind of recall, we should all get a photograph, man. Who's with?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that,
Surgery on our brains. Love.
so that's the,
Not a debater. He's a kid.
why isn't this coming up?
Why are you like young boy last time?
Is this right? This is why we were played, isn't it?
No, we got to John Von Lieden.
Yes.
So give me
Okay.
1 sec to get my notes out.
Huh? Okay,
Let us begin.
cool. So Van Lieden, he was Mathis' second in command right after Mathis died. He took over, and he kind of appointed himself the monarch of Munster. He decided it went a lot further than monarch. He started to refer to himself as God. Sins, if you committed anything he saw as a sin, it was capital punishment. You were put to death, like immediately. This is where the exploitation comes in. Polygamy was mandatory. However, it couldn't be a woman with multiple husbands. No. You were executed if you did that. But men could have multiple wives, and it was kind of like enforced. He actually ended up marrying Mathes's widow, and so that was a big part of the exploitation. He would host banquets for himself while everyone was suffering, because while he's in control, after they close up the city and they leave the bishop alone, the bishop stopped sending any exploits in, so they're completely closed off from the outside world. So the people start to starve, while Van Lieden and all of his council have all of these banquets. He also enforces a secret police to have people kind of telling on each other. He started to also rewrite certain prophecies within Munster, like some of the ones maybe Hoffman or Malthus had written. He kind of sucks. And then Waldeck one night who's the Prince Bishop, tries to take back the city, but it doesn't go very well because he hired a bunch of mercenaries and they all got really drunk. And so one group of mercenaries thought now is the time they were supposed to attack, but they were very wrong and they're also very drunk. So they go to attack the city. All of the other groups see them doing this. They're also very drunk. But the walls to the city were still up pretty stable. So the people of Munster started to just attack. I think the people of Munster only had 10 kind of casualties. Only 5 people died in the city. Prince Bishop's mercenary army, gone. And then but during this, people were still starving. They weren't doing too hot. And a couple of them were pretty wounded. And Van Lieden wouldn't do anything about it. So people would try to leave. However, the Prince Bishop thought they were traitors. So they were either executed immediately unless they were people who were high up in Van Lieden's staff and they kind of knew the secrets. He would keep them. He would quiz them to make sure they knew certain things. Or if you were caught by Van Lieden, you were executed as well. So it was either starve or get executed. 16 months later, Prince Bishop has had enough. And he decides to get his city back, and he tells everyone to kill everyone but take their leaders. He got a whole army from the church. Rothman, who was the original Anabaptist preacher of Munster before Mathis, everyone came, he escaped somehow, but Knipperdolling and Van Lieden were captured. And I didn't want to write the German because I don't take German. I can't pronounce German very well, so I didn't want to butcher this. But so when Van Lieden was captured, he asked, "Are you a king?" And Van Lieden simply replied, "And are you bishop?" Which was a very demeaning. This was him trying to demean the Prince Bishop because he thought he was this holier than thou person. It did not go very well. And so Prince Bishop took the leaders there. So it was Nipperdoling who got captured, Van Leiden, and then Van Leiden's second in command, Bernard Kretching. And they went on like this little tour throughout the Roman Empire, just kind of show like, this is what you happen if you try to like stray from the church or ever try to take a city that's not yours. And the walls of Munster were destroyed. When it came to the end of the tour, though, I don't want to describe how they were publicly executed, but all three of them were publicly executed. It went on for hours. It was awful. And then they put their bodies in cages in the cathedral in Munster, and the cages are still there to this day. The bodies were taken out a couple years after the incident, but it was kind of the Prince Bishop's whole thing was, it's like a warning sign to never do something like this again. So some of the base rituals of Anabaptism as a whole was like the believer's baptism, where, you have to consent to baptism. This is like your new birth. And then, the Holy Communion. But most churches that stray away from the Catholic Church use bread and grape juice instead of, because they don't see it as literal blood and body of Christ. There's also the Holy Kiss, which is often during like the passing of peace during church. Instead of just like a hug, it would be like, like a little pet, little kiss. And then specifically in Munster was the forced polygamy. So they wanted basically anyone in Munster once they moved. Once Mathis started to take over, especially his whole thing was he wanted everyone there or they were to be executed. But eventually it was just being kicked out. Mathis and Leiden, especially when Leiden ruled over, this was heavily enforced. It was Rothman and Nipperdoling were like, that's probably not a great idea. And they were the ones who were able to convince them to not execute people at first. They also made the citizens of Munster so vulnerable. I mean, when like the people were starving, they would kind of just do whatever Van Leiden were saying. Like there wasn't really anything that people could do at this time. So yeah, they had the charismatic leader because the original leader, Hoffman, was a very charismatic guy. He had like this booming voice. People listened and loved his sermons. And then when Mathis took over, he was able to convince them, I'm the second coming. I'm the second witness in Revelations. I'm basically the reincarnation of David. And he got these people to believe this. Van Leiden just knew how to take control over really vulnerable. They would find people in distress, like especially people who were starting to stray away from the Catholic Church, which was used to be like a big no-no. They would kind of take those people in and be like, we've got you here. They simplified the problem. Like they were like, the whole thing is like all of your problems, it's caused by the power structure of the church. Leave the church, join us, join our movement. They would create a new identity. If you were Catholic in Munster, not allowed, you were executed or you had to be rebaptized. And then, the hardcore exploitation with, especially Van Leiden, the forced polygamy, making sure he would take everyone's food to make sure he could have these feasts. Not there yet. And so like personal opinion, because like their original thing was like, we need to stray from this power structure, this hierarchy of the church, like this, like what they deem as exploitation. Like we really need to build a community. That's like what we see with like, especially the Amish, because they're descendants from Anabaptism. Like it was like this idea of building communion, but once you get a guy like Van Leiden who just takes out and runs, everything falls apart. A couple of my sources writing about this, they compared it to People's Temple quite a bit because there was that whole secluded from the outside world, and Van Leiden's big thing was if you leave, you will die, or if you try to leave, I will kill you. And again, awful exploitation with the polygamy. There was the secret police. People would discipline each other.
And Jim Jones is alive?
Oh, yeah, according to that newspaper. Yeah. So, yeah, Anabaptists now are better, but not in Munster in 1534. It's mine.
Any questions? Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. By the way, did you notice in the People's Temple video, they were doing the baptism in there?
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
the pool, adults,
Yeah. Rebaptism.
And what year was it again?
15. So the Sledum Confession happened in 1527. And then so everything started to take place like 1533, 1534, because that was when Hoffman was like, what said when Jesus would come, but Jesus didn't come and he died later that year. So then the rest of this took place throughout 16 months because they were captured. They were captured 16 months after Van Leiden got his reign, but Mathis only had it for about a year. So about 1537.
Awesome, less than 20 years after Luther.
Yeah.
All right, good job. Should we go to Moonster and see the cages?
Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
They're still there.
There's-
Good job. Give me one sec. So, wait, I'll move the mouse. I'm just getting so upset. All right,
You're
go.
all right. So before we start, have a little mantises because this is a pretty grim topic, to say the least. Yeah, Waco and Vernon Howell, aka David Koresh. His early life started he was born August 17th, 1959. His mother only 14 years old. And his father was 20 years old and he abandoned them before Vernon was born. And then Bonnie had another marriage and then soon divorced because of she was abused during that time, and then leading to Vernon at 2 years old being sent away to his maternal grandmother, Arlene Clark. And yeah, he would, but then not only 2 years later, well, here, I'll explain a little bit. His mother, his mother and his grandmother, kind of did a little pretend thing where, they said his grandmother was his mother, to like try to protect him and just say that, Bonnie was his aunt. But when he was 4 years old, Bonnie got a new husband, named Roy Holdman. Yeah. And this would lead to feeling like Vernon feeling that he wasn't wanted. And it would lead to the impact of for the rest of his life, really big, leading to the horrors that happened. And he was constantly abused with Bonnie and Roy. And yeah, then he would cry when he couldn't stay at his grandmother's to other relatives, or he would just cry when he had to stay at his mother's. And then July 1965, he got a half brother named Roger. And then yeah, it was constant back and forth because Vernon was he kind of got into fights with his grandfather a bit, but he found and he would also get bullied at school because he was basically called stupid, to say the light, because it was kind of a much awful word. He failed every grade basically, but he had a real passion for the Bible. At 12 years old, he would memorize passages. And then he would also find a positive outlook into sports. And then he would find a religious school, but then he started arguing with the teachers about certain passages, and then got kicked out. And then he would teach himself guitar. Sorry, what's up?
He reminds me of somebody. We'll get to him.
Okay. And then with his music, he learned guitar. He found like just an old rickety one. He taught himself, and it would be the best time in his life. At least the time he would feel the most accepted in his younger life. There would be he would get attention from women, and everyone he talked to basically everyone liked Vernon for a little bit. Then in 1977, he found his first relationship, with a 16-year-old, and he was 19 years old. This would go on for, I believe, 2 years. And then in between that, he got her pregnant once, then an abortion happened. And then a year later, he got her pregnant again and then was cut out of her life with her father, knowing that this happened. And so this would lead him back to, yep, sorry. This would lead him to the Seventh Adventist Church. Yep. And I skipped a page, sorry. Or I am so sorry. I have so many papers right here.
But it was a big one.
Yeah. Here's. There we go. Okay.
I get it, yeah, I'll look at it.
They do. I put numbers down to track myself. Yep. And so he found this church and then he found he would be a pretty just not knowing, but he's a pretty big personality. So he put some pursuit on the pastor's daughter, which she was 15 years old at the time, and he's in his like early 20s basically. And he would have a secret relationship for 2 years as well. And he stated God told me to do this because he saw something in the Bible. It's like, yep, this happened right there. I should pursue this 15-year-old. It was the prophecy. But he would not be kicked out for that, actually. He would be kicked out for two long-winded speeches about prophecy and such, and he would be actually thrown out of this church. And he would find a newfound energy in himself, because he thought they were basically kicked out for him telling the truth, basically. So he went back when he went to LA to try to better his music career, but he failed miserably. And so he went back to Texas and found a little church called the Branch of the Davidians. The Branch of the Davidians was founded in the 1950s with Lois Roden. With Lois, with Lois, she let Vernon in because it was talks from the Seventh Adventist Church, for this is a branch of the Seventh Adventist. And basically, sorry. Yeah, Vernon would do some side work, some repairs, but then he would talk about the prophecy again, and Lois liked him a lot, so she would let Vernon teach his the serpent's root lessons. And she was very impressed with Vernon. So impressed they got into a romantic relationship, Vernon, and she's like 60 years old. And he's still he's like in his mid-20s now. And they would have talks of having a child called the Chosen One. And this would lead to her son, George Roden, and other fundamentalists in the church being a bit mad about this because they thought Vernon was gonna take over the church, which he does eventually. But yeah, so there was a big power struggle, but it kind of settled down after Vernon basically finds another underage girl and marries her with parents' consent. He was a sweet talker, basically. Very charismatic. She was 14 years old too. It's horrible. And because of this, this would be a very, yeah, her name was Rachel Jones, and they had two children together, Cyrus and Star. And this would lead for peace for a little bit until a fire occurs with all yeah a fire. And this was like the admissions place. It was in a whole building. It was $500,000 of the whole building entirely, and there was accusations of Vernon. It's saying that Vernon did this, but he said no, God did this. It was God's will. Obviously he committed arson. He does this later again, committing arson. It's kind of a more of a coincidence because only does it twice, but almost a bad. So he gets kicked out with 25 other followers, and then he goes to Palestine, Texas to start recruiting people throughout, and this happens for 2 years. Basically, he would go all the way to the UK, and go to Israel eventually, which he has another prophecy of him just being he named his kid Cyrus, but it's basically there's this guy in the Bible. He was a speaker of God, named Koresh, and he would later name himself that once he goes back. When Lois dies, and they want to go back for confrontation, to try to claim back the church. And when I was reading into this, I was just stunned. So basically, George gets a body, and Vernon claims that the reason why George got this body was to resurrect it and have a challenge to resurrect it, and saying whoever it resurrects this body is the actual is the prophet. George claims that he was just moving cemeteries, but basically Vernon tells the police that they have a body. And police don't believe them, so they ask for photo evidence of the body. So with 6 others, Vernon, they all get loaded up with various assault rifles and cameras, trying to find this body. And Roden finds them, and they have a whole shootout. Many people are injured, including George Roden. And by the time the sheriff gets there, Roden's just howling because he got shot in a not vital, but really hurt. So Vernon would go to court with these 6 other people, and they wouldn't be tried. They would be tried, and they would be found not guilty due to the jury not being able to come to a concise verdict. And also there was another thing with the judge saying it was like the 1980s, and the judge was also black, so he was like, I was black, so I can convict them. And it was all like a white, southern place. Obviously it's Texas, but don't know for that for certain. Yeah, so and then Vernon would get a new found wind, and George would start going into hysteria, basically. Killing a man with an axe because he thought it was one of Vernon's spies, basically. And he would be tried as criminally insane. So after that, Koresh just takes lead as the prophet of the Davidians. And this is when he names himself David Koresh. as the prophet. And then he would start doing a lot more things. He started the New Light Doctrine, which basically made all the women and girls into his spiritual wives, basically. And all the men in there would have to remain celibate, and basically give up their wives to him. This would lead to some more horrible things. He gets with gets with 20 women and then 2 underage girls. This one was alleged, but the other one was confirmed as 12 years old. The other one was confirmed as 10. Not confirmed, but alleged as 10. And yeah, and he would start a stockpile of weapons and such, and trying to spread God's will. But taking a break, before we get to the main climax of our thing, just want how he convinced people to join. He knew the Bible so well. He memorized the passages and everything. He memorized the entire Bible, and he would construe it in a way that would make people just believe him and want to join him. He was such a just charismatic leader. So basically they would just do readings and sermons of the sort, for practicing. And for the branch of the Davidians, they actually believed in the end of the world, as many cults do. Second coming, obviously. And how Koresh portrayed this, why he got all the weapons was due to them believing that they would come from Babylon, and he would portray this as Babylon as the U.S. government. And he would say that the end of the world would come with loud sirens, planes flying over. He would actually give children weapons and just everyone weapons, like saying, if you see a plane fly over, use this to shoot yourself, basically. You need to train these people to do that. It was awful. And he would also basically control everyone's lives. Like, there was this weird one where he made it so that you can't have grapes and bananas on the same plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Definitely not. And then also processed flour, alcohol, obviously, and just other just weird things. But obviously, he would take in all these vices and say, "God, let me do it." Yeah. Because he wanted to be the sinful Messiah, basically. Because he said that God sent me down. He said Jesus down, but Jesus couldn't understand humans in a way because Jesus could not sin. But he sent me down because I can, and I can relate to humans, basically. It was so odd, so fascinating. Yeah. And also with he would also tell the men who were celibate, that they would find their lovers from their rib, at the afterlife. Yeah. But as we get to the ATF involvement, the alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and basically firearms, and explosives. They got in. There was many rising tensions throughout this because there was some ex members saying that Koresh was so evil and all this thing, people were abusing their children because of Koresh. But one of them went directly to the sheriff, and he would quote, as I quote, that it was all sour grapes. Which was insane to me because all of these horrible things were happening. It's fine, don't worry about it. Another reporter said that it would be another Jonestown, basically. And yeah, but there were some other talks about investigating, but the main one that led up to it was the ATF because they UPS driver, because of all these illegal weapons, they were modding them and such, and getting grenades. A pack of grenade shells would be dropped off and then explode. um, yeah. And the UPS driver was like, "That's not supposed to happen. I didn't know that." Yeah, and just so they contacted that and they started putting their plays into action. They actually put in a lieutenant in there, a spy of sorts, and Koresh knew about him throughout the entire time and just let him there. And once we lead to Project Showtime, he would start like crying and wanting it to stop because there was a so how Project Showtime started, the beginning of the end. It would lead. It was just like a tactical like search and seizure, get people out, and basically barge into this into what they call Apocalypse Ranch. And there was a little bit of a issue. There was some reports, and the ATF told them to halt it because they were about to do this thing. It was a local reporter, but then a local reporter was asking for directions, and then accidentally let it slip that this was happening to Vernon's brother, basically. And Vernon's brother was like, "Oh, hey, people are coming. Be prepared." So everyone starts stockpiling, getting all their weapons and preparing for a standoff and a shootout. And for Davidian, 1 second, yeah, so and at 12 p.m. Oh wait, no, that's sorry. Okay, 5 members of the Davidian. Yeah, by oh. 3 members of the ATF would die, and 12 would 12, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 3 would be killed in the standoff of the ATF, 4 would of the Davidians would die. There was a lot of wounded people. And this would lead to a 51-day standoff and like hostage negotiation. And it's one of the longest ones in history. It would be broadcast throughout the news, and everyone would see it. My mom actually saw it when she was younger, and she was telling me about it. She was playing with Legos, and she was like crashing in like cars and stuff things into each other, and then she would told my great grandmother, "Look, it's the people on TV," and it was the people of Waco, and it was yeah,
Very fast.
yeah. Thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, they would start off with trying to get hostages out. By week 1, they would get 20 Davidians out, or I think it was 34, actually. 35 out. 21 children, 14 adults. But then there was 2 teams and there was constant bickering between the 2, just leading to so much more, like, the more aggressive team would just prey with, like, how Koresh like described the end of the world, would just prey on their fears of them, because they would start playing like loudspeakers, get rid of the power.
The ATF would play lots.
Yeah, the ATF would play loudspeakers. Oh yeah, sorry. And yeah, and yeah, speakers, and then April 19th, held Rick loose. At 12 p.m. they started rushing in because they were tired of it. 20 more members died. Koresh started a fire to end it end it all basically. And yeah, lasting effects, there would be the Oklahoma truck bombing. And it would be done to this, there would be a lack of trust in government, leading to many movements. And this would also help with like Ruby Ridge, help with this distrust in the government, and would, yeah, just lead to our political, what some politics now today. And yeah, it was a horrible story, but I am glad to learn about it and happy to share it because people do need to remember Waco and the tragedy that was.
Yeah, and so definitely were the Branch Davidians a cult?
Yes, obviously.
Yeah, without a doubt, right? All the elements, and there was a bunch of screw ups, but yeah, the biggest domestic terrorist attack you mentioned, Oklahoma City, 2 years later, was on that same day.
Yep. 1995.
And they referred to it on the January 6th insurrection, so.
Yeah.
Any questions? Good job, Doc. You had so much stuff, and then you got your notes screwed up. I
Yeah,
get it.
sorry about that.
Yeah. Greg, do you mind starting right now? Please. Yeah, you mind? Get started, then we'll go. Then you'll be the first one tomorrow. Sound good? Or do you want to go first? And say no, we'll get started. We'll finish it tomorrow. Sound good?
Yeah.
If we're here. But the school doesn't go away. Yeah, it's gonna be bad. So we're going right from one apocalyptic cult to another.
Okay. Heaven's Gate was an American cult. It was a UFO cult. It was started by these two people. This is Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, otherwise known as Doe and T. Applewhite was the son of a pastor from Spring, Texas. It's around Houston. And then Nettles was a nurse from Houston, and she was raised as a strict Baptist too. So they're both very interested in, religious theory from a young age. They met in March 1972 in a hospital where she worked. She was 44 and married at the time. And then at that time, Applewhite, he lost his job and his wife due to multiple homosexual relationships. So they were just kind of two oddballs at this time. But anyways, they had some conversing in that hospital, decided that they should be friends. And then from there, Bonnie Nettles convinced him that he had a divine assignment sent from heaven. And we'll get to that. But she also had him convinced that they were friends from a past life. Together, they studied much of the New Testament and the Book of Revelation, which is a lot of the apocalyptic biblical stuff. And then there was some mixing in of science fiction ideas. Applewhite, or Doe, if you will, he really liked Star Wars and reading other science fiction books. So they started to theorize about extraterrestrials too. There's some stories of them just kind of staying up all night working on their theories, which I think is kind of funny to imagine. They went by some other names other than Doe and T. They went by Bo and Peep, but Doe and T is the most common. And then after, talking a lot and deciding that they were chosen to fulfill the prophecies of the Book of Revelation, they concluded that they were higher level beings sent to Earth. They were higher level beings sent to Earth, and they were kind of like in these containers of human bodies, but their souls weren't from there. Much. So some of their core beliefs, they started believing and spreading the idea that there was an evolutionary level above human. Pretty much like a simple way to think about it is that aliens have a better heaven than the one that is like the one that is talked about on Earth. They started believing that UFOs were going to come. They had believed that they were sent by aliens and as well as God to help take more worthy humans to that level, to the literal heavens. And along with the UFOs, they believe that the Hale-Bopp,
The Hale-Bopp.
Hale-Bopp comet was coming, and bringing those UFOs that were going to help the humans transcend to that next level. They were going to help these worthy humans go to that level by instilling strict discipline in them to make sure that they had the ability to evolve. And that was kind of their core beliefs. Okay, so they started as the Crew, among other names, and they did a lot of public speeches about their beliefs. They got their first follower in 1973, but she would leave soon after and would return to her family because they got started pretty slow. But you get your first example of exploitation right after that when right after she left, they both got arrested for credit card fraud. They were using her card and her identity to pretty much just buy a bunch of stuff. In Oregon, they were at a motel and they were just talking about how, you know, the end times were coming and people needed to evolve. And they actually gained 20 people from that speech. And they spent a lot of time in Oregon camping out. You know, another good speech that they had gained 25 followers in LA. They kind of bounced around all around the country. I couldn't find like exactly where they went, but it said that they traveled all around the USA. Doe Applewhite, he further developed his theories during this time, and he realized that he was closely related to Jesus, and that he had powers similar to his, similar healing, and you know, he had similar powers to Jesus. So they really appealed to people that started to question modern conservative religious practices and people who felt that something out there had to be bigger and better and something out there had to be proven. And they gained a lot of people that felt, you know, spiritual disconnect and emotional problems. Oh yeah, and they even got a Colorado House of Representatives candidate to join them. He was like about to win his race, and then he went and joined the cult.
Oh, yeah.
And then I couldn't find why, but in 1976, it kept saying that they stopped recruiting and started living kind of a monastic lifestyle in various compounds. I'm not sure why they stopped recruiting. I mean, they weren't very popular among the public. Honestly, a lot of people did not like them very much.
Okay, this is a good place. We'll stop and then we'll pick it up right here
Okay.
with,
Sure.
and everybody, see, that's the last image you'll see as you leave. All right, mini applause for halfway through. All done. Good job. Yeah, you have really pretty amazing stories. Yeah, Hale-Bopp. I remember seeing that in the binoculars. That's all the way you could see it. There's my comments. Haley, stop in. Tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, goodbye, everybody. Thank you. See you, goodbye, goodbye.
Bye.
That, by the way, that's a good job. No, I thought it was it had a pretty board and stuff.
No.
Oh, then I'm. Good job, all right. Oh, love is one. Love is one, that's good. It's, yeah.
There's supposed to be E.
No, you're fine.
I just wanted to put this kind of thing yesterday or just. That's what I figured, so this is.
Yeah, so you're good, we got notes, and then I did post it, but I can't do it on YouTube project.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow, got it. Let me make sure this is working. Oh, work. Oh, no, I have bad feelings. Is that a gift for me?
I know. I didn't even know we were supposed to do it.
But you got to, and you were gone that day, so.
Yeah. But
That's good, all right.
all right. I didn't know if we were supposed to underline or highlight anything in like the.
No, I just supposed to read through and answer the questions. You're good.
Okay. Said I could do the quiz.
That's crazy talk.
Are you our teacher?
Yeah, we can use it in something needed. Work right on this.
That's going.
Yeah.
Put your name there. Sound good? Go out in the hall, get it done, just take a sec.
Jackson looks like you're here for the first time. Like he's kind of like doing a name that he looks like a really important, like to me. Maybe some of the most important to his past.
Work. Perfect.
It's your ball spot. I mean, it's nice.
River, I don't know if you heard Even talk about his mom. He's playing Lego with her now. He just said his mom playing Legos, and I was like, well, that's how I'm ready to get hired in capital. So, it makes you feel very old.
You were still playing.
Huh?
You were still playing. Like.
Oh, yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah.
That's
how I document all these installations.
We just had the ATM and the hot sauce, Waco. Yeah. Oh, really? We just literally had. We just had a presentation on it. That's great. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
For your. I have to put that one up there because the problem with that. We'll talk about some of the stuff they do. Yeah. But I did tell them for my. But only for my class. But yeah, and now we got halfway done with Heaven's Gate. We're doing nothing but cults from now on.
Yes.
When you run out.
Yeah.